Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining the Lions KidSight USA webinar. I'm Holly Logden. I'm one of the marketing specialists here at Lions Club, and today I have PID Dr. Ed Cordes with me. Dr. Ed Cordes is a past International Director of Lions Clubs International and the current chairperson of Lions KidSight USA. Dr. Cordes is an optometrist who has served as chairman of his district site conservation and site first committees in New York. He's also the co-founder of the Arthur P. Darling Low Vision Center. Additionally, he served on the State University of New York College of Optometry Council for 19 years and as the council's chair for 9 years. Dr. Cordes has recently retired from his optometry practice and is now serving the KidSight USA program on a full-time basis. Before I hand this over to Dr. Cordes, I just wanted to go over the control panel really quickly with you all. So what you see on the screen now is the control panel. This is where you'll find audio information, ask and respond to questions, and raise your hand to share your story or ask a question. If your control panel disappears, click the arrows to make it reappear. If you're using a telephone, dial-in information is displayed so that in the event you are disconnected, you can dial back in. The questions pane is where you ask questions throughout the webinar. At the end of the webinar, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions and share experiences with the group. If you'd like to share with the group, you can raise your hand. And to raise your hand, you just click the image of the raised hand and the green up arrow to be called on. If you wish to lower your hand, click the new image of a hand with a red down arrow. Like in a classroom, we'll call on individuals and allow them to be heard. If you're not using the telephone, please make sure your computer has a microphone before participating. Also, everyone starts off muted so we won't hear any outside noises. We'll do our best to try to get to everyone. However, we do want to stick to our 1-hour time period. The webinar is also being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent via email within the next few days. Now that we all understand the control panel, I'll hand it over to Dr. Cordes, and he'll tell you more about Lions KidSight.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you very much for signing in to learn more about Lions KidSight USA and how we could use this program as a membership tool. First, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background. Lions KidSight USA was formulated about 1.5 years ago. We were asked to develop a program for children's vision screening as a result of a survey that went out to Lions in the United States asking whether there should be a single unifying project for Lions to participate in, and then if the answer to that question was yes, what that project would be. And overwhelmingly, the answer was yes, there should be a single unifying project, and overwhelmingly the responses were that children's vision screening and efforts to help children's vision should be the primary service activity for Lions clubs in the U.S. So I was asked to head up that effort, and we added an additional charge, if you will, and that would be to create this Lions identity that could be used for PR purposes and also be used as a tool to recruit new members. So the basic concept was that when the public asks, well, what do the Lions do, they're not just thinking about flipping pancakes and selling raffle tickets or some of the other things that our clubs do all the time, but also think about, well, you're the people that do the children's vision screening and make a difference in the lives of children in our communities. So that's the background as to why we're here. I'm very pleased that you all signed in to learn more about this. One of the things I'd like to say is that we're going to go through the general outlines of what happens when a club or district or zone, multiple district, takes on a vision screening project. The goal of this webinar is not necessarily to teach everyone to be expert vision screeners or to be expert in going out and actually doing screening. The goal today is to give you an overview of what vision screening is all about and what the clubs in your areas are doing when they're involved in vision screening, and then how you can assist them in doing PR work and doing membership recruitment and outreach as GMTs. So the first slide here shows that it's a Lions KidSight USA. It is a Lions program that uses handheld vision screening devices and primarily directed towards pre-literate children ages 6 months to 6 years to detect the risk factors for something called amblyopia or lazy eye, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail in a couple of minutes. It also detects refractive error or the need for glasses and other vision problems that children may have. And it is very important in many of these cases that these conditions be detected before the age of 6 or 7 so that proper treatment can be initiated when there's still a good chance of success in the treatment. The manufacturers that make the cameras that are approved by KidSight USA provide them. It depends on which model you use or which manufacturer you go with. But basically, the machines are going to cost between $6,000 and $7,000. Next slide, please. So the primary goal of children's vision screening is to detect the risk factors for amblyopia or lazy eye. The secondary goal is to detect the need for eyeglasses and any other abnormal vision conditions that children may have. There may be a child that has one lid that's significantly lower than the other lid, and it gets in their way. That would be detected during the screening process. There may be other risk factors to vision development. Some children can't keep their eyes still, or some children have other things that show up during the screening process that would interfere with their ability to see. And I think it's important to point out at this point that 80% of a child's learning comes through vision. And so detecting potential problems with vision in young children gives them the most potential to achieve good education, good educational goals. Next slide, please. So over the last year and a half, Lions KidSight USA has set the standard for children's vision screening. And what that little very technical, very precisely worded slide tells you is that we can withstand what I like to call third-party scrutiny. We've set up protocols for doing screenings. We've set up standards for when to refer a child and when a child doesn't need to have a referral. We've set those standards up based on nationally accepted guidelines that are put out by government agencies, put out by all the professional agencies that deal with children and children's vision, so that when a Lions Club gets involved in children's vision screening, if they follow the protocols that KidSight USA is promoting, they will be able to have any agency, any person, any individual come in and say, you guys are doing a good job, you're meeting the national standard. Next slide, please. So what are the effects of poor vision on young children? Obviously, if 80% of the learning comes through vision and children can't see very well, they're not going to be able to read very well. And so this program also fits in very well with our reading programs that we still have going on. Many children who are not seeing very well also have behavior problems. They may not participate in sports very well, or they may try to participate and have very poor performance. They don't socialize well, and so on. And there's a perfect story that fits into this. My current council chair a couple of months ago was in a grocery store, and he happened to have his Lions shirt on, and a gentleman out of the blue came up and said, "You're with the Lions." And Council Chair Gary said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, you're the ones that do the vision screening, and I have to thank you because my son was diagnosed with a behavior problem and had ADHD or one of those behavior problems. He was unruly in class. The children around him didn't want to participate in class when he was there. and he was about to be referred for very deep psychological evaluations and testing, but they decided to get vision screening. They did a vision screening, found out the child had a very severe vision problem, which was properly treated, and the child's behavior totally turned around, and is now a very good child in class behavior-wise, and is also doing very well academically. So these things really do affect children, and lions performing vision screening can really affect a child's life. Next slide. So what is amblyopia? I said the primary goal of children's vision screening was to detect the risk factors for amblyopia. So technically, the definition is decreased vision in one eye relative to the other. So you may have a child that has 20/20 vision in one eye, and the other eye could be 20/200, it could be 20/1000, it could be 20/70, but reduced vision. Even though when you look at the eye, it's healthy. There's nothing that stands out as being necessarily a sick eye. And it's caused by, as you can see on the slide, an unequal refractive error. What that means is that one eye might have a normal to very low glasses prescription, but the other eye could have a very high glasses prescription. It could be nearsighted, farsighted, astigmatism, but something that is really dramatically different than the fellow eye. You could have a child with crossed eyes, where one eye turns in or turns out or up or down, and the other eye is straight, and the brain tends to choose the good eye or the straight eye to see with. I have congenital cataract down there because some children are born with cataracts, but there could be anything that interferes with the light transmission into the back of the eye. So you could have a cataract, you could have a corneal scar, you could have a distortion in a cornea relative to the other cornea. Anything that interferes with the light getting to one eye and not the other eye could cause decreased vision in the affected eye. Now, it's really, really important to detect these conditions before the age of 6. And the reason is this. If you put your hand in the back of your head and feel that little bulge right in your skull above the base of your neck, above the top of your neck at the base of your skull, right underneath there are the brain cells that are responsible for vision. And there are cells back there that respond primarily to the right eye. And then there are cells back there that respond to the left eye. And then there are cells back there that respond only when two eyes are being used together as a team, which we call binocular vision. So if there is something that interferes with the image quality of one eye and not the other one, that one eye that has the poor vision, whether it's because the eye is turned, that has a high refractive error, or whatever the reason might be, the cells for that eye and the binocular cells don't develop. And if they don't develop by about age 6, give or take, then they're never going to develop. That's what causes a lazy eye. So if you have a child whose eye turns in, the child is going to have to make a subconscious decision. They're either going to see double because one eye is looking straight ahead and the other eye is looking to the side. And seeing double is something the brain absolutely does not want to do because it can't make proper decisions on which glass to pick up. It can't make proper decisions on navigating throughout the world. So the brain subconsciously turns off the eye that turns in. Then those cells don't develop. And if that doesn't get treated by age 6, maybe age 7, there's some different studies that show a little bit of variability in that. But basically, age 6 is the standard explanation. Then those cells are not going to develop, and the eye will never have good vision, and that's called amblyopia. Next slide. So where are we going to find children? Now, it's kind of important to point out that many times children don't get their first vision screening until they enter first grade. And in first grade, most children are 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5 years old. So if we wait until a screening takes place at first grade, we've then lost the majority of the time frame when proper treatment could be instituted to help this child regain good vision in the poor eye. So what we want to do as Lions is go out and find those locations where there are large numbers of preschool kids before age 6. So that might be daycare schools, it might be summer camps, it might be religious schools and scouting groups, et cetera, et cetera. We can screen kids in elementary school, that's fine, but we just need to know as Lions that if we're doing screening in the older age groups, after age 6, 7, 8, we're not really going to affect the outcome if we detect any amblyopic risk factors. We are going to be highlighting those children who need eyeglasses, however. And so we always encourage the Lions Clubs who are doing KidSight USA vision screening to screen kids every year and go ahead and screen some of the older kids because they outgrow their jeans, they outgrow their tennis shoes, they also change their eyes as they get older. So there are refractive error and glasses conditions that occur as they get older. We're still going to find them. But the primary goal of detecting amblyopia needs to be done in the preschool. The last bullet is very, very important, which is why I highlighted it in red. And I know that there are a lot of people who do screen adults, but there's really a serious risk in that. The machines that we are recommending that we use in preschool kids and early age kids detect the risk factors for amblyopia, detect the need for glasses. They are not designed for, and in no way, shape, or form are they going to detect those diseases that adults are at risk for. So glaucoma, macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, any of those whole host of diseases that adults need to get their eyes examined on a regular basis with a dilated pupil to detect are not going to be found with the machines we're using. So if you have an adult sign a disclaimer that says this is just a screening, it's not an eye exam, and an adult, you screen the adult, and if the machine does not find the refractive error, and the adult looks at you and says, well, did I pass? The very moment you say yes, no matter what disclaimer that adult has signed, they're going to have a high chance of interpreting your yes as having passed an eye exam. And that may, in fact, cause them to delay normal eye care where glaucoma, macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and all those other diseases could be detected, but they didn't go, so they were not detected, and treatment was delayed, and their outcome could be worse. So we recommend very strongly not to screen adults. Now, there is a caveat to that, and the caveat is that if you use the machines primarily to look for refractive error, but then in addition to that, you're doing a retinal photograph that you're sending by telemedicine to a doc for interpreting, and you're doing good, thorough glaucoma investigation with pressure testing and cornea thickness and visual field testing, that's fine. Then you're looking for those eye diseases. But if you're just relying on KidSight USA processes, adults should not be screened. Okay, next slide. So the bottom line on vision screening is that Lions participating in our program can actually save a child's sight. If we catch them early enough, we can get the proper intervention, and they can be treated so that their sight can be restored. As a consequence of that, the children's school performance could be better, and they would have a better overall life experience because they would learn more in school and basically be better adults. The last thing is really important as well. There are numerous instances where doing simple children's vision screening has actually saved the life of children. And the most publicized case is, we call the Brianna video, it's on the LCI website. And those of you who were in Hawaii at the International Convention or at UN Day last year got to meet Brianna. She's a girl who 3 years ago in my own home district in upstate New York was screened by a Lions Club, and they couldn't get a good reading. And they screened her again, and they couldn't get a good reading. And the basic rule of thumb is that if you try a screening on a child 3 times and the child is cooperative and the pictures look good and there's just no reason why you can't get a good reading, then that's an automatic referral. So this child was referred, and she went to the eye doctor, and they found what was termed a retinoblastoma. And retinoblastoma is a retinal cancer, malignant cancer, that if we don't treat it soon enough, the child will die. This girl was 5 years old at the time. She did have the operation to enucleate her eye, which means remove her eye. But it's now 3 years later, and she is alive and vital, and she wears a prosthetic eye, and you would never know that she's had a problem. Well, since KidSight USA started, I know personally of about 5 other cases throughout the country where people have written in and told us success stories like this, and we try to put as many of them as we know about. We put all of them that we know about on the KidSight USA Facebook page. So if you haven't checked on that yet, please go do a Facebook search and like us on Facebook and follow it, because you'll see a lot of good stories there. Next slide, please. Now, with all of this clinical success that comes from doing vision screening, then we have to kind of talk a little bit about the boring part, and that's the administrative requirements that we have to do. But I see the administrative requirements that KidSight USA is asking everyone to do as a very huge asset for GMT coordinators, because we have to have parental consent forms. We have to have a pass refer notice that goes back to the parents if a child is referred. And we have to have a screening report that goes to the doctor to explain why the child is being referred. Well, each of those forms gives us an opportunity to interact with the public. And I'm going to show you some sample forms in a couple of minutes. But each of those forms takes up one side of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, which means the opposite side is totally blank, which is why we're recommending, as part of KidSight USA, to put a letter or a blurb or an advertisement or some PR information about your Lions Club and the things you do. And it gives you a perfect opportunity to interact with all levels of the public in that regard. And I'll show you an example in a second here. Next slide, please. So after a referral, what happens? Once a child is identified as having a risk factor or needing to have a full comprehensive eye exam with a dilated pupil, the people doing the screening, the Lions doing the screening, or the agency that you are working with has to notify the parent. The parent needs to make an appointment with the doctor. Screening team or agency, the Lions Club or the agency, has to follow up with the parent to be sure they actually brought the child to the doctor after they were told that that has to happen. And then eventually the doctor will send back the results of that screening, results of the comprehensive eye exam to the agency you're working with or the screening team at the Lions Club. Now, that said, there's a couple of things I'd like to highlight here. Some Lions Club areas will have very large, centrally coordinated vision screening programs with a paid executive director that takes care of all of those things. Other Lions Club areas will work with the school nurse or the school administrator when they do screenings. That happens to be what my club does. So if the people doing the screening in our club go out to the Corning Community Head Start program. They make arrangements with the school nurse and the administrator to screen the children. They turn the results over to the Head Start nurse or administrator, who then is responsible for notifying the parents. Sometime later, and I would say a month, maybe 6 weeks later, follow up with the parent and say, Mrs. Jones, John was identified at the vision screening that the Lions Club did last month as needing a referral. We sent the form home. Did you have a chance to take John to the eye doctor yet? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then say, well, fine, here's a list of some people you can go to. If there's some financial help you need, we can help make those arrangements, and we'll call back in a couple weeks. And having the last bullet on there, having the doctor send the screening results back to either the Lions Club or the agency, I always get a lot of questions about HIPAA on that and privacy. And the explanation to that is, we're not asking for the doctor to say John Jones has farsightedness and an eye turn. What we're asking the doctor to send back is, out of the 10 children I've seen on behalf of the Corning Lions Club, these are the results. 5 of them had hyperopia, 2 of them had myopia, and 3 of them had eye turns. That's all you really care about, is keeping track of that global data that does not have to be associated with any name. Doing the procedure that way, we're not violating anyone's privacy. Next slide, please. So how does this help membership? Well, every single one of the steps that we talked about gives Lions an opportunity to interact with the non-Lion public. You're interacting with school nurses, you're interacting with school administrators, you're interacting with teachers' aides, you're interacting with parents, you're interacting with doctors. Hopefully you're also interacting with some of the media in your area, publicizing what you're doing. So every single one of those steps gives us a chance to wave our Lions Club flag and say, we are making a difference in children's lives. We are making a difference in our community. This is what Lions Clubs do. Next slide. So, in addition to that, if any of you have any experience in doing vision screening in your club, you already know Lions love to do vision screenings. Lions love to get out there in the public and positive interaction with the children, positive interaction with all the adults that need to get together to make the vision screening happen. It's something that Lions get so enthusiastic about because they see they're making a difference. And I get emails every single day. We went to a particular school, Ed, and we screened 400 kids, and 40 needed to be referred. And we are just so proud that we were able to make a difference in those kids' lives. So it really builds enthusiasm in the Lions Clubs. It's a meaningful project which the public relates to as well, because the public, they get it. They understand that Lions Clubs are helping their children get services that they wouldn't have gotten if it weren't for our club being there. Next slide. So, how do we do all this? How do we get PR out there so that the people in the community and the people we're working with know that this is a Lions Club project? We use promotional flyers. We have the permission forms I talked about before, referral letters, PR pieces of media, material sent to doctors. Every single one of those things is an opportunity for us to put the Lions logo on, the Lions KidSight USA logo on, and brag about what our clubs are doing. Next slide. We also try to do as much radio and TV advertising prior to doing a screening. We like to brag about the fact that we're screening the preschool kids in the Greater Corning area. We like to brag about the fact that we're doing the vision screening to help the school nurse at Head Start to take some of the load off of him or her and identify the kids that need to be sent to eye doctors for comprehensive eye exams. All of the things that we do in PR, however, really should also have an invitation to the public to come and attend the meeting, because as successful as children's vision screening is, and as meaningful as it is in the public's eye and in the lion's eye, hopefully that's not the only thing your Lions Club is doing. Hopefully your Lions Club is also involved in many, many other projects throughout the community. So it's a good opportunity to highlight those projects, inviting the public to attend the meeting, learning more about what the membership is like, learning more about the diversity of projects that we do, and offer them an opportunity to get involved and pick something that they want to do to help make their community a better place. Next slide. So here are some examples of forms. Now, the forms I'm putting on the PowerPoint here are all on the website, the KidSight.org website. This form, there's variations of it on the website. This is the form that my Corning Lions Club uses as parental permission for screening. And a couple of things I'd like to point out. Number one, it has the normal address, parent's signature, so on and so on. But in the upper right, it has a patient number, or case number. That's a way that you can identify records if you don't necessarily want to have that particular screening record identified by name with the children. So you can print out a list, and like record 1 was referred, record 2 passed, and so on. So that's a kind of an anonymous way that you could do that if you wish. Another important thing is the box that's kind of in the middle of the page on the left. And it says, parent or guardian will be notified about the results of the screening. And on the bottom of that little box is an opt-out with a check mark. KidSight USA has adopted this as a standard for parental permission forms. Because if a parent does not check that box and signs the form giving you permission to do the test, then they are also automatically giving you permission to call them with the results of the screening and call them to do follow-up. Follow-up is really, really important. It's just identifying a whole bunch of kids that need to get comprehensive eye exams, but then not taking the next step and doing something to ensure that the parent understands the importance of following through and getting an eye exam for children, and being sure that that actually happens. You're only doing half the job if you don't do the follow-up. So by having the parent not check, if the parent does not check that box but signs the form to do the test, then they're automatically giving you permission to call them at the number they give you and then doing the follow-up. That absolves you from the HIPAA implications that while you're calling someone at home or you're calling them at work, they're basically giving you permission. Now, the question comes up, what happens if they do check the box? And if they do check the box, then you can't call them. And it's up to, if you're dealing with an agency, it's up to the administrator to keep those records and talk to the parents. If it's just your Lions Club that's doing the follow-up, you're sending the form home with the parent that says that their child passed or needed a referral, but then you cannot call them at a later date. You have to honor their request if they opt out, if you will. Next slide. This is a banner stand that's available on our website. It's a pretty good size banner stand, probably 18 inches, 20 inches high, and appropriately wide. It's a nice thing to spread around when you're doing screenings, to set them up so the public can see what's going on. Not a bad idea, by the way, to invite some parents, if they're available, into the school when you're doing screening with the permission of the agency administrator, of course. they might want to see what's going on, and it's a good idea to put that banner stand around so everyone knows this is a Lions Club KidSight USA program. Next slide. This is an announcement, again, it's on the website, that can be used to notify local media when you're doing screenings. If there are any of you or any clubs in your area that are doing public screenings outside school districts, like maybe doing a health fair or some similar kind of public screening, an announcement like this can be filled out and sent in to your newspaper or radio or whatever your local media outlets are to let everyone know what you're doing. Next slide. This is a flyer. Again, all this is on the website. That has to be updated, and I'll show you why in a second. But it's a nice flyer to put around when you're doing screenings for people to read. It's a nice flyer to send home with the children. So I had my eye screened at school today, Mom, and they gave me this piece of paper. And that piece of paper, not only, one piece of paper will tell them whether they passed or failed the screening, but the other piece of paper will tell them everything about the Lions Club and what you're doing. The thing that has to be updated is that statement there that says Lions Clubs across the United States screen more than 500,000 kids every year. That number is very low. In my travels the last year in learning about all the various vision screening programs around the United States and the increase in vision screening programs that have taken place since Lions KidSight USA started, I'm going to say that number right now is over 1 million children screened. And I can justify that by saying that, if you average 30,000 screenings per state per year, times 50 states, that's 1.5 million. I know the Lions in Oregon have a very, very robust program, and last year they did 142,000 screenings in one Lions year. This year they're planning on doing more. Oregon, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and so on, Kansas, Kentucky are doing way over 30,000 screenings a year. So that makes up for some of them that are doing less. So I think that we can safely say that we're Lions throughout the U.S. are screening more than 1 million children every year. Next slide. This is a sample letter that my Lions Club uses on the back of the forms. We talked about it earlier that on the back of every permission slip, doctor referral, all those forms and administrative things that we're asking Lions Clubs to do has a blank on the back. Well, this is a sample that our club uses, and I'd like to point out a couple of things I think are important. Number one, it tells about Corning Lions Club, who we are. It lists all the local projects that my Lions Club does every year. It lists some of the fundraisers and then lists some of the other projects we support that are maybe more broad than the immediate vicinity of the city of Corning. But it also says very plainly that if you're interested in learning more, this is when we meet, this is where we meet, and we'd be happy to have you come visit us. Now, every club makes their own decision. I can tell you that if we have a guest that would respond to this and wants to come to a meeting, we pay for the first meeting's meal. It's just something we do because we think it's the right thing to do to help membership and makes it easy for potential members to come and learn more about us. That's up to your club. But it also has a way to contact us. We have a website, and our club has a Gmail account that's monitored by a couple of different members, and we're also pretty active on Facebook. All of these things are ways that we interact with the public. Putting that on the back of your forms can only help you reach out and do membership recruitment and PR. Next slide. We had a pre-event announcement. This is a post-event announcement that's kind of similar to the one I showed you just a minute or two ago, but it talks about what we accomplished instead of what we're going to accomplish. And it's a good thing to brag that, in the beginning of the school year from the first week in September through to the 1st of November, Corning Lions Club screened 4,000 children in our area, and we had an average referral rate of 10%. So we are very proud of the fact that we were able to help 400 children receive eye care that they wouldn't normally have received. And that's one of the things the Corning Lions Club does in our community. Brag about yourselves. Next slide. So, one way to help make all this happen is for you, Lions, the GMTs, to have a coordinator to learn as much as you can about the KidSight program and our processes. That doesn't mean that you need to be an expert screener. It doesn't mean that you need to be the one that's in charge of the screening for your district or zone or multiple districts. But what it means is that if you learn as much as you can about what we're doing, then you can communicate with those Lions that are doing the screenings. They are involved in the outreach and getting different schools to participate in the screening program and other public agencies participating in the screening program. You can then guide them in all the things that we've been discussing in doing robust PR and robust Lions Club awareness as to what the Lions are doing in their communities. Next slide. So, summary. Lions KidSight USA. Children's vision screening led by Lions. It's Lions that are doing the work. It's Lions that are doing this very large, meaningful community project that has a lot of visibility, that also has a lot of potential for PR and membership growth. We need to keep that in the forefront of everything that we do so that we brag about what we're doing, and the public identifies with us as you're the ones that are making a difference for children. Next slide. Lions are really, truly making a difference. We're helping our clubs by improving our communities. We're preventing children's vision loss. We're increasing the educational potential of those children who would have 80% of their learning inhibited because they don't have proper vision. And we're improving their long-term quality of life, which then also improves our community. And we cannot minimize the fact that we are truly, truly saving lives every year. I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry. I had a bunch of static. I'm not sure why that happened. So, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may all have. But again, I thank you very much for participating in the seminar.
Thanks, Ed. So now we're going to kick it over to you guys. If anyone has questions, just click that little hand button that we talked about earlier. Andrea, is there anyone that has any questions? No questions? All right, and you guys can always email us too if you think of anything. Oh, so David Roberts, we're going to unmute you now. You have a question? You there, David? David, can you hear us? Okay, well, we'll go to, who else has a question?
Marianne.
Marianne, you're unmuted now if you want to ask your question.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good. Is the PowerPoint available to use?
Yes, I would say we can probably send this out, can't we?
Yes. Yes,
we'll send out a link to it.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
Excellent. Yeah, and after this, we will be sending out the recording too, so you'll have that.
Oh, good.
We'll have a link to that in an email. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else, Andrea?
Try David again.
David?
Can you hear me now?
There? Yeah, there we go.
Hi, David.
Okay, if you can hear me, I just wanted to comment. We just finished a school district here in Arizona where we did 6 schools, preschool, kindergarten, first and second grade, which are required by law. And we did all the kids, but we found that a lot of the children were Spanish speaking. So we printed our permission form, English on one side and Spanish on the other, and about half the forms came back printed on the Spanish side. So it was very successful for us. We did roughly around 750 screenings in a couple of weeks.
Wow, that's excellent, and good point. Yeah, not everyone speaks English, so you have to think about the Spanish versions too. Excellent point.
Thank you, Dave, and you guys in Arizona are doing a super job. We're putting a lot of your notices on our Facebook page, and they're all getting a lot of hits. There are examples on or samples rather, on the website if you go down to the resources page of other states who are printing their forms in Spanish and in English. So that is really a very good asset for those areas that have a very high population of Spanish-speaking people.
Great. I think we have one more question.
Yes, Jim?
Jim, you're going to be unmuted if you want to ask your question.
Well, I want to first say thanks to Ed for a job well done. I was a little late getting in, but I hope everybody realizes not only how important that the screenings are for the kids in the community, but I hope that all of them will take the opportunity to invite the parents and grandparents of these kids into their Lions Club and help grow our membership in all these communities that we're screening these kids.
Thank you, Jim, for participating, and thank you also for all the support you've given our program. It's been invaluable. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks, Ed.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to add, Ed, before we kind of wrap up here?
I'd just like to thank everyone else for participating. It's been a lot of fun, and I think that, I don't know, I get pretty emotional when I talk about this because it's an opportunity to really, really show what Lions are all about. We are the Lions Club. We are the biggest service organization. We are the most active service organization in the world. And through a program like KidSight USA, we can really, truly make a huge difference in our community. And I appreciate everyone signing in today and helping make this a better program.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining. And like I said before, we will be sending out a link to the recording of this, so you can feel free to share it with your club. And thanks again, Dr. Cordes.